Hi, my name's Sue. I'm happy to be with you to talk all things puppies tonight. And as Adam said, if you've got any questions as we go through this presentation, fire away in the Q&A box and Wendy and Adam will do their best to answer them for you. So for those that weren't here from the start, Wendy and I have both been working at Wood Green and working with dogs now for just over 30 years. So we love dogs and we love helping people with dogs, and our aim and a core part of our job is to keep pets in homes and certainly keep dogs in homes. So if you've ever got any concerns, any questions, anything about living with a dog, then please contact Wood Green and ask for behavioural support, and you'll get put through to one of us and we will help you. So let's kick off with the first question. Why might people want to get a puppy? The little puppy pictured here is Esme, and she was about 6 weeks old when this photograph was taken, and she is a Dog de Bordeaux cross Neapolitan Mastiff, and today I believe weighs within the region of 80 kilograms. Anyway, so people would consider getting a puppy because they might have existing pets in the household and they feel that if they're taking on something at 8 weeks of age, it's no risk to any other animal in the household. It's going through its socialization period, so integration is going to be easier. Also, they might have young children, and the same kind of rule applies, that an 8-week-old puppy isn't a risk to any child, although we will talk about that in a little bit more detail later on. And what a lovely experience for a young child to grow up with a dog. People might perceive an 8-week-old puppy as being problem-free, a clean slate. You know, when you hear people say, oh, there's no such thing as bad dogs, it's all about the owners. So you think if you take on an 8-week-old puppy, you know, you put in all the hard work and you'll get a great dog out of it. And to be fair, to a certain degree, that's true, but you cannot rule out genetics, which is why it's so important to do your research, definitely to meet the mum of the puppies. If you're going to a good breeder, you can hopefully inquire about the dad. You can meet the dad as well. You can ask questions about grandparents, look into pedigrees, that kind of thing. Consider what these dogs are bred for. So problem-free isn't always a guarantee, is what I would say. You might think they're easier to train, and yeah, they are. I'm a massive advocate of you can teach old dogs new tricks, 100%. Dogs can learn at any age. But of course, puppies are like sponges. But also you need to bear in mind that they're going to learn the naughty things as quick as they learn the good things. So you have got to be on the ball when you're raising a puppy. And hey, they're flipping cute. Who can't look at a puppy and just go, oh, they're so cute? They just are. It brings out something maternal in all of us. So there's that reason. And a lot of people at some point in their life, they just want to give the puppy thing a go. Okay, so let's really think about what's involved with taking on a puppy. First and foremost, we have to consider that this is a massive commitment. And it's going to be a commitment depending on what type of breed type that you're taking on. You're going to be looking at 8 to hopefully 16 years, somewhere within that range. The larger the breed, the shorter the lifespan. Somebody tonight has said that they're getting a poodle puppy. They can go on until they're damn near 20. So it is a long-term commitment. They're sentient beings coming into your life, sharing your life with you. So sacrifices and compromises are going to have to be made for a long period of time. You've got to consider finances. Dogs aren't cheap. They're really not cheap. Dog food isn't cheap. Vet bills are, God, not cheap. You've got to, unless you're financially stable and secure, you've got to consider pet insurance, because vet fees can be exorbitant. for even some of the most minor issues. My girl had a thorn in her paw a couple of weeks ago, and her paw got infected very quickly. And for 48 hours care, it was £450. Thankfully, she's insured. So we need to bear that in mind. If you need a dog that needs regular grooming, that's an expense. If you like to go on holiday, you've got to consider boarding expenses. So you've really got to consider the finances. We need to look at puppy proofing our homes, and I'll go into that in a little more detail shortly. And if you've been doing your research, which I'm sure you have, if you're putting thought and consideration into getting a puppy, and of course you are, otherwise why are you here? You probably have been having a chat amongst the family about crate training, and you might have considered buying a crate and crate training your puppy. And that is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with crate training, but don't feel that you're being irresponsible, and don't put yourself under pressure to crate train a young puppy. It can cause owners and puppies a great deal of stress in the early stages. Wood Green are absolute advocates of crate training at some point in the early stages of a dog's life, because the chances are it might need to be comfortable in a crate for car travel, or comfortable in a crate if it needs to have a stay in the vets, or God forbid it has an accident or surgery or something and needs crate rest. It's always a good idea to familiarize your dog with being comfortable in a crate. But to put stress on yourself as an owner to ensure that an 8-week-old puppy that's just come home from a breeder is in a crate is kind of unfair, both on you and on the puppy. And that's when you need to consider your individual puppy's personality. Some of them are introvert, or they're calm and they're laid back, and you can put them in a crate and you can shut the door and go to bed on the first night. You won't hear a peep out of them. But the more confident, extrovert, outgoing puppies will cause you issues. So it's stressful for the puppy to go through that. It's stressful to you to go through that. So don't feel you're being irresponsible by not immediately crate training your puppy. You have time, okay? I'm a massive fan of puppy pens, but more on that a little bit later. So house training, we're going to cover that in a little bit more detail. For some it's easier than others, but you will get there. Socialization with people, and over the last sort of 12 months, it's been a little bit challenging, obviously, with social distancing. But you will, with those of you that are just taking on puppies now, with restrictions gradually starting to be lifted, it may be a little bit easier for you. However, I do still want you to be a little bit guarded with regards to letting strangers swamp your puppy and suddenly think, oh, I can come into your 2-meter distance and I can stroke your puppy. Because remember what I said about the crate training, there are some puppies that are more introvert and a little bit shy and take a little bit of time to come out of their shell. There are others that are really bold, confident and extrovert. And if strangers push their attention on a more introverted puppy, that can go on to cause fear issues with strangers. And for those puppies that are really confident and extrovert and end up loving all the fuss from strangers, you're then going to end up with a dog that grows up to want to mug everybody because everybody thinks he's wonderful. So I'm going to come on to habituation in a moment, and I want you to consider that a little bit more. Socialization with dogs, and lots of people feel that they want to put their puppy in doggy daycare for socializing, or they want to bowl their puppies up to every dog in the park for socialization. And again, it can go one of two ways. If you give your puppy a bad experience and your puppy gets frightened by an over exuberant adult dog, or a really grumpy adult dog, or it gets pounced on in play and intimidated, that can cause issues further down the line. Socialization has to be handled very carefully and needs to be done at your puppy's pace. And when we're looking at socialization with other animals, yes, if you've got a house bunny, or yes, if you've got a cat, then that needs to be done carefully and steadily, and you'll find advice on our website for that. But again, you don't want your puppy socializing, for instance, with sheep and cattle, because by definition, socialization means interacting with. You don't want your puppy interacting with sheep, because that may end in disaster. So I want you to do a little bit of research on this word habituation. And in my mind, I think habituation should be more important than socialization. So as I said, socialization is your dog or your puppy interacting with other things, other people, whereas habituation is where your dog just learns to accept them as part of the environment and isn't bothered by them. So you would habituate your dog to traffic. You don't want him to pay any attention to the fact there's traffic. You absolutely would habituate around livestock. You don't want him to pay attention to livestock. And actually, a lot of the time, I want my dogs habituated to other dogs. I don't want my dog seeing a dog on the other side of the field and going, oh, I'm going to go and see that dog, and just running off and going to see it. I want him to go, oh, Mum, there's another dog over there. Where's my toy? Where's my treat? I've given him a positive association that when he sees another dog, he checks in with me. When he sees a stranger or a jogger or a cyclist, something like that, his cue is to just turn around and check in with me. I just want to habituate him, just say, just don't pay attention to them. Or if they do pique your interest, look at me. That's more important for me than getting your dog to love everyone and everything. So home alone training, that's something that once your puppy is settled in and he's learnt the routine of his new life, that you want to be starting sooner rather than later. I would say after a couple of weeks of settling in, I would be then leaving him something to do and then popping down the post box and posting a letter and coming back. The world hasn't ended while he's been on his own, that kind of thing. So we'd introduce that quite gradually. Excuse me. Basic training, and we're going to look at that in a little bit more detail because we want to be sure to get that right with regards to building the right kind of bond. And the correct diet and feeding regime. I'm not for 1 minute going to sit here and tell you what to feed your puppies. Gosh, there are so many different diets out there. What I will say is feed the best that you can afford until your puppy's finished growing physically. Okay, so all the while that he's growing and developing all his bones and muscles and everything, then feed the best that you can afford. That's what I do. And then I might compromise a little bit once they've finished growing. If you have got a pen and paper to hand, and if the breeder has not already briefed you on this, a puppy coming home to you at 8 weeks of age, as a general rule of thumb, will be on 4 feeds a day until he is 12 weeks of age. When he gets to 12 weeks of age, you put him on to 3 feeds a day until he gets to 6 months of age. And then when he's hit 6 months of age, he'd be on 2 meals a day for the rest of his life. And how that meal is delivered can be, well, we talk about that in our Living with Dogs talk, because how we deliver food is quite important. And then there's exercise, and we're going to do a little bit of potential myth busting, if you like, on exercise, but we'll look at that in a little bit more detail a little bit later on. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through the list of things that most puppy owners struggle with. And for those of you that have already got puppies, I want you to see this list and go, oh, it's not just me. And for those of you that are about to take puppies on, remember this list. If you've got a pen and paper to hand, write these things down, because you will not, I want you to know that you're not alone. Okay, these are the types of issues that Wendy, myself, and the rest of the team, when we're sat here giving free behavioural advice to new puppy owners, these are the questions, these are the things that we're talking about. So I'm just going to list them and then we'll look at them in a little bit more detail. So crying at night, those first few nights when you get a puppy home, and just how exhausting that first session is. House training, car travel, because puppies being sick in the car is stressful. Destructive behaviour, puppies that steal things, puppies that guard things. It might be food or it might be something they've stolen. Puppy mad half hours or zoomies, the bewitching hour. We get asked about that. This is probably one of the biggest, puppy biting. We call them land sharks for a reason. Okay, you will not be the first person to own what you think is a really vicious puppy, but we'll cover it, like I say, in a little bit more detail. And exercise, how much is too much and how much is not enough. And integrating with existing dogs in the home. If you've got older dogs and you're bringing a new puppy in, we get asked questions about how to do that. Okay, so let's start going through this list. Crying at night. And the first question is, where should a puppy be overnight? And I guess I need to start by saying that dogs are sentient beings. And by that, I mean that they have a very similar range of emotions as we are. They are an emotional species. And we just need to have a little bit of empathy for them at the start of their lives with us. They've been born, they've got brothers and sisters, they've got a mum that has nurtured them, and they've got a granny, which would be the breeder, that once weaning started has cared for their every needs and kept them clean and started the house training by letting them out and all of that kind of thing. And then your wonderful, exciting day comes along and you go and you pick up your puppy and you take him away from his granny and you take him away from his mum and you take him away from his brothers and sisters and you take him to your new house. Well, it might not be new to you, but it's new to him. And he's like a little alien been dropped on another planet. He has no clue about what your house is. He has no experience, and he spends that first day exploring. There's going to be a little bit of stress involved, and he's exploring the part of the house that you're allowing him to explore. He'll have gone out into the garden because you'll be working on his house training. You will have introduced him to new human members of your family, and then the nighttime comes. And when you look at a litter of puppies when they sleep, either during the day, but most definitely overnight in the dark, they all pile on top of each other. By the weaning stage, mum's generally not in with them all night, but they are with brothers and sisters and they pile on top of each other. And nighttime comes, your puppy's been the centre of your world all day long, and then he's popped perhaps in a crate for the first time, or he's shut away in the kitchen, which is the most common place that people would leave a puppy for the first time, in the dark, on his own, and he's left. And he's going to cry. And he's going to cry because he's really scared and he's really stressed because he is experiencing something for the very, very first time, which is, quite frankly, for some puppies, going to be terrifying. This always goes back to what I said before. You are going to have some introvert puppies, some laid back puppies, some highly strung puppies, some confident, bold, outgoing, extrovert puppies. It really depends where your puppy sits on this kind of line, if you like. So I just want you to have a little bit of empathy and consider exactly how, put yourself in your puppy's shoes on that first scary night. Because this is what we get, just a howling, wailing puppy. And think how stressed this little infant is that in the natural world, he would be giving away his location to predators. He's that frightened, calling and calling and calling for some reassurance. That's how stressed he is. We need to consider that for dogs, because they are a social species, that being on their own at this stage of their development, because there's been no training given to teach them that home alone is okay, social isolation is deemed as punishment. So he's had this day with you, and then in his little mind, he's being punished when you go to bed. If he's left to do this, if you think back in the day with human babies, we were taught to, or we weren't, but parents were requested to leave their babies to cry it out. Now, studies have been done on those children as they've got older, and so many of them have got anxiety issues because when they needed help and when they needed comfort and when they needed support, their core person wasn't there for them. They were left on their own to deal with their own fears. So this can go on to lead to things like separation anxiety, fear of being alone. And it comes from being created too soon. So it's going to lead to restless nights for the puppy, and sure as hell going to lead to restless nights for the owner and possibly your neighbours. Because they're stressed, they, like us, they're going to likely to want to go for a wee more. Lots of people do want to go to the toilet more when they're stressed. So then the owners find it difficult to know, is the puppy crying because he doesn't want to be on his own, or is he crying because he needs to go to the toilet? And then if they get it wrong and they think that he's crying because he's on his own and they've got to ignore that, and he ends up toileting in his crate, the last thing you want is a puppy to learn to toilet in his crate. That defeats the whole object of crate training. So like I said, it can end up leading to generalized anxiety issues. And because you've got a tired puppy that's not had good quality sleep, you get a cranky puppy, and a cranky puppy is a bitey puppy, which leads to a frustrated owner. So our advice always, and any advice that you go to for a recently or a scientifically, let's say, qualified behaviorist, they're always going to say, for the first few nights, maybe even the first week, then you need to, or your puppy needs to sleep wherever you're sleeping. Now, if you don't want a puppy in your bedroom, that is absolutely fine. You don't have to have a puppy in your bedroom, but you do need to get a camp bed. And if you want your puppy as an adult dog to grow into sleeping into the kitchen overnight, you set up a camp bed downstairs and you wean yourself away. Or as in this picture here, you've got a crate right next to the bed. Puppy knows it's with you. Your hand dangles down the side of the bed with your fingers through the bars, so the puppy knows and feels safe and secure with you. I don't tend to use a crate by the side of my bed. I use a puppy pen, and I cordon off an area around the side of my bed, and he's got blankets and a water bowl and everything in there. And the thing to remember, that if you've got a contented puppy that feels safe and secure and he's gone to sleep with his trusted family member, then your puppy is going to sleep deeper. If he sleeps deeper, he's going to sleep longer. He might not even wake up in the night and need a midnight wee. Happy days, we get to sleep longer. It increases the bond. Those that sleep together stay together, okay? But this doesn't need to be forever. You can, once he realizes that the nighttime isn't scary and he can cope on his own, like I've said, you would wean yourself away from the puppy. You get a good night's sleep, and you need it when you're raising a puppy. You've got to have eyes in the back of your head whenever your puppy's awake. So it's important that you get your rest. And if you've got a happy puppy, you've got a happy owner. So that's my key point really about the first few nights. The key take home message is, do not leave a puppy to scream and scream and scream at night. It's the puppy is totally distressed. And if you're struggling with it, please contact us. Okay, house training. House training takes time and consistency. For most puppies, it's relatively straightforward. The smaller the breed type, the more challenging it can be. But you people have all been sensible, and Easter aside, because the weather forecast is pretty rubbish, you're all looking to get puppies coming into the nicer weather and the longer daylight hours, which is great, because basically it means your back door can be open more than it's shut, and you can be watching your puppy and encouraging him outside and rewarding accordingly. But the key times is, if your puppy's had a nap, and he should have lots of them throughout the day, he should sleep for probably 18, 19 hours out of 24. Every time he wakes up, even if he's only been asleep for 10 minutes, encourage him straight outside onto whatever substrate, be it grass, gravel, pavement, wherever you want him to toilet in your back garden. Encourage him outside, wait for him to go to the toilet. Very calmly, don't get excited with your voice, but very calmly as he's going to the toilet, just say something like wee wees, clever wee wees, something like that. And then when he's finished, good boy, back in the house, he gets a little treat, and he's been rewarded for going in the right place. Quite often they need to go to the toilet after eating, and it might take you a few feeds to work out whether he needs to go immediately or whether he needs to go 10, 15, 20 minutes later. But generally speaking, after a meal, that's definitely when they need to go for a poo. So I would be popping them out quite regularly. Watch for sniffing, any little circling behaviours, or just kind of aimlessly wandering over perhaps towards the door, because one of the first things you're going to do when you get him home is show him where the back door is, out into the garden where the toilet is. And if he starts to kind of move anywhere near that door, just open it and give him the option to go outside to use the toilet. And if you're playing with him or you're doing a little training session with him and suddenly he just disengages from you and walks away, just think, something else is on his mind. And again, pop him outside and give him the opportunity to go to the toilet. And on top of all of that, just frequent opportunities. It might be every sort of 40 minutes, every hour, something like that. And for a lot of our clients, if they're struggling, we just say, keep a toilet diary, write down every time your puppy goes to the toilets, whether it's a number 1 or a number 2, because then you can start to predict when he needs to go and you can make sure he's in the right place at the right time going forward. So hopefully that helps you. And I've put this little bullet point on here to say, think twice about puppy pads. Okay. Puppy pads isn't something that Wood Green would encourage the use of. Back in the day, we used to use newspaper, but now they've introduced puppy pads. Excuse me. Apart from anything else, which I will get into, they're terrible for the environment, really rubbish for the environment. So we don't want to be going down that route. But also, we're just putting an extra step into the house training stage, which is we're teaching the puppy that it's okay to go to the toilet in the house, but actually I do also want you to go to the toilet outside. So it adds a little bit of confusion. And then lastly, what I want you to consider is look at the photograph of the golden retriever puppy going for a wee on the grass. Okay, the more exposure he gets to having his paws on grass and going to the toilet, what he's building is what we call a substrate association. He's learning that when his feet is on grass, he can go to the toilet. If we introduce puppy pads, the puppies are learning, oh, when my feet are on something soft, because these things are often impregnated with smells that make them want to go to the toilet. Puppies thinking, when my feet are on something soft, I can go to the toilet on here. And over the recent years that puppy pads have become a bit of a thing, we're seeing more and more cases of people that have house trained their puppies on puppy pads, but then their puppies are going on rugs and they're going on duvets, they're going on blankets, they're going on cushions, because they've learnt that substrate association. My paws are on something soft, I can go to the toilet on here. We don't want to encourage that at all. If you're absolutely desperate and you have to put something down in the house, just go back to good old-fashioned newspaper, because they're less likely to cause you a problem further down the line. So there we are. And never punish a puppy for going to the toilet. You know, it just, that makes absolutely no sense. They don't understand that you're punishing them for toileting in the wrong place. It's a biological urge, a need. They don't have control over it. They need to go, they go. It's down to us to show them where the toilet is and give them every opportunity to get it right. There's no point in getting it wrong. And I'm really, really hoping in this day and age that there's no more of this rubbing their noses in it. What a barbaric thing that used to be. And I'd really like to think that that doesn't happen anymore and nobody would ever be tempted to do that. But again, if you have any house training concerns or queries, please get in touch with our pet support service so that we can support you through it. Okay, let's have a little chat about car travel. If we've got to think of when a puppy leaves the breeder. So as already said, that can be quite stressful, that first journey away from the breeder, and then you get him home. And then the next car journey might be to go and get his first vaccination. ouchie. And then his third journey might be to have his second vaccination, ouchie. So there's little wonder that by the time he's going out and about, he's got a little bit of a negative association with going in the car, because it's kind of bad things have happened or painful things have happened. So we need to take it gently and slowly, and short little trips to nice places. We need to consider that the front of the car is always going to be more stable than the back of the car, because the engine is based at the front of the car. And then we've got suspension, but the backs of cars are always a little bit more bouncy. So if we can start them off in the front, that they're less likely to be bounced around and have that sicky feeling. Obviously, you need to have safety measures in place. So you need to have them in some kind of appropriate carrier or harness, a seatbelt attachment, that kind of thing. So for the little ones, I'll have them in like this cat basket and have the seatbelts around it. And then I've got a picture on here of a crate, a covered crate, because sometimes if you've got a puppy that's feeling sick, or even an adult dog that suffers with travel sickness, it's quite often because they can see the scenery whizzing by and it makes them feel ill. So if we put them in a covered area and they can't see that, then it can make them feel a little bit more secure. There's a product that you can get from the vets. Pets at Home might even do this, but it's called Adaptil Spray. More effective with puppies than it would ever be with adult dogs, because it's a synthesized pheromone from a lactating bitch. So it's that smell to a puppy. You can't smell it, or we can't. It's that smell to a puppy that makes them feel safe and secure in the nest. So what you would do is you would spray the area that your puppy's going to be in the car 10 to 15 minutes before you put the puppy in the car, and then go for a journey. So that helps again calm them. You might want to put the radio on, especially if your puppy's sort of squeaking and shouting, because one thing is for sure, you can't allow yourself to be distracted. Health and safety. I'm never going to leave a puppy to scream and cry in a crate in the house when I'm trying to teach Home Alone and for the puppy to cope on its own. But in the car, the safety of others, when you're driving a vehicle, you cannot interact with your puppy other than perhaps sticking your fingers of one hand through the bars to placate it, but there's no looking at it and addressing it in any way. Your eyes front. You've got to be aware of other road users with that regard. So sometimes I do just end up turning the radio up and thinking, I can't hear you. Keep your initial journeys nice and short, and go somewhere nice. When they're very young, obviously you're still going to be carrying them, but as soon as those vaccinations kick in, if you've got a lovely park or nature reserve 5 minutes up the road from you that normally you would consider walking to, put them in the car and drive them those 5 minutes to the nature reserve, and then get out and let them have a wonderful time, and then drive them home again, so that you are pairing good experiences with going in the car. That's what we want. And then gradually you build them up. You might drive around the block 3 times before you get to the nature reserve. It's that sort of thing that we want to do. Build positive associations. Obviously, you're going to then be moving them towards the back of the car, and so they might do a little bit of time on the back seat, or you will have the dog guard up or proper crate in the back of your car, the boot of the car, and that's where they're going to end up for safety purposes. Okay, destructive behavior. Well, as you can see on the slide here, puppies chew. It's what they do. They have lots of very, very sharp teeth, and they explore the world through their mouths. And if you leave things at puppy height, in order for them to grab and get and chew and learn about what leather's like, what plastic's like, what wood's like, what wool's like, what materials like, all of those kind of things, that's what they're going to do. That's how they explore their world. It's how they learn. So yeah, prevention is always going to be better than cure, and we're going to have to learn to be a bit tidy. So the first thing we need to do is puppy proof our homes. So those of you that have not yet picked your puppies up, I would love you to send me some video footage. No, don't, honestly. But what I want you to do, and this is great to get kids involved if you've got kids, is they get down on their hands and knees and they crawl around the rooms that your puppy's going to be allowed in, to see whether or not they can identify anything that your puppy might be able to reach and therefore chew. Okay, we call it puppy proofing, but you have to look at the world from your puppy's viewpoint. So the lady there, I think, I shouldn't say lady because I can't remember if it was or not, the person that was taking on the little mini poodle, there was somebody that was taking on a Cavapoo, somebody that was taking on a Westie. Really, you're just going to have to lie flat on the floor and wiggle like a worm, because they're going to be tiny, and that's the range that you've got to look at, because they're bright, intelligent little dogs, and they're going to make their own entertainment. So we need to ensure they can't do that. Think like a puppy. You can get some great gadget from places like B&Q, any sort of hardware stores, where you can tuck all your cables away. You can box your cables in, absolutely, because cables are a biggie. Remove anything of value. It's not going to be forever. It's just going to be until they've grown up a little bit and this fascination of their new environment has passed. So anything of value, put out of puppy height, because yeah, it might get damaged is all I'll say. It won't be puppy's fault. Of course, anything harmful, if you're great fruit eaters and on your coffee table you like to have a punnet of grapes on your coffee table, oh no, move them out the way. That could be very serious. We've got Easter coming. If you've got to have puppies home in time for Easter, then I'm sure you know that chocolate, especially dark chocolate, is toxic. There's lots of things within your household that are potentially harmful, so by all means do a little search for that. And be tidy. And this is me saying that to you. I am probably one of the least tidiest people that you would want to know. I tend to, when people are coming round, I tidy up as opposed to tidy up. So let the stack it boxes be your best friend. Have one in each room, okay? And just keep doing a whip round and just pop things in the stack it box with the lid on so the puppy can't get it. It's a massive, it's a great trick that I use. And if you've got counter surfers, taller puppies that are counter surfers, install these straight away onto your work surfaces, because the last thing that you want is for your puppy to be reinforced for stealing any food items off the work surfaces in the kitchen. So if you have a stack it box on the top and anything, just put it in there and then sort it once or twice a day. So prevention is always going to be better than cure. So you can see the photograph on this slide with the golden retriever in it. And this is kind of my perfect setup. So I've got a crate, but the door's open. I'm not shutting my puppy away in that crate, but he is getting used to the confinement for when I want to ramp up the training for confinement as he gets older. It's covered over, so he's got a nice little safe place. And then this is the puppy pen that I'm talking about, that you can set either around the whole crate or you can attach it to the sides of the crate, and it gives him his own like little garden area, his own little safe space. And then in there they've got I love the idea of this little tray that they've got the water bowl in case he spills his water. It's not going to go all over the place. He's got a little tug toy in there, and he's got a Kong, the same as the little black Labrador on the bottom right hand corner has got a Kong. And if any of you haven't bought a Kong yet and you're getting a puppy, get out there tomorrow and buy at least 3. They'll be a lifesaver for you. Absolutely, they will. So this means that this puppy, he's completely safe. He's got entertainment. You can turn your back on him and you can go and make a cup of tea. Or if you've got young children that are crawling around on the floor and you need to make a telephone call, you can keep the two distracted, keep an eye on the toddler, but the puppy is safe in a pen, and it just keeps him out of harm's way. You see the lovely chair at the back of that pen. He would probably love to have the opportunity to get his teeth in there as he's teething. but he can't because he's in his little garden pen, which is lovely. So giving them things to chew, things to occupy them, rotating the toys. They'll get bored with their toys really quickly. So you want to be able to rotate them to keep the novelty value of them. And a top tip as well, depending on the size of your puppies, those with really small breed puppies, you would use a flannel. Those with slightly larger puppies would use a tea towel, run them under the tap, tie a knot in them, and then pop them in the freezer and then get them out. And the puppies, especially when they're going through teething and they've got sore inflamed gums, they love chewing on that with frozen material, which is really nice for them. So giving them things to do, a top tip really, I've spoken to you about the Kong. So there's two Kongs in this picture, the red one and the black one. For puppies, it really doesn't make that much difference what color you get. In fact, I think there's even puppy Kongs that are pink, which are slightly softer rubber. The black rubber is the hardest. So you might want to consider that for perhaps a bull breed puppy, but that comes more into play with adult dogs. But if you stuff them loosely to begin with, and then go on to stuff them more and more firm, and then end up popping them in the freezer, that's great pacifiers, gives you peace and quiet to actually get on with something while your puppy's got something to do. But I will say the plastic bottle, the empty plastic bottle there, I tend to use the little 500 ml plastic drinks bottles. I'm a fan of Coca-Cola. Take the lid off, take the ring off from the top, make sure it's been washed out and it's all dry on the inside, and then just put half a handful of kibble in that and give it to your puppy and watch what happens, because they'll be able to smell the kibble, they'll be spinning the bottle round, bits of kibble will fly out, so we'll have a little snack on that, and then that will keep his interest, and then he'll get to the point where he's brave enough to pounce on it or pick it up and throw it around, and you'll just sit and just smile and laugh watching your puppy have a whale of a time with just a really cheap enrichment toy. You've got other things there like the innards of a kitchen roll or a toilet roll that you could put a bit of his food in and then stuff it with tissue either end. You've got the activity ball, which is a hard plastic ball with a maze inside, and you would put his dry kibble in there, part of his meal, and then he noses and pushes it around and the food falls out. So lots of fun things to keep your puppy occupied. Now, what I will say is in this picture is the rawhide shoe. And the reason that picture, that the rawhide is in there, is to remind me to say, please don't give your puppy rawhide. Yes, they like to chew on it, they do, but rawhide, for ethical issues, okay, if you really did your research where rawhide comes from, it's a byproduct of the leather industry. It's treated with all sorts of bleaches and chemicals. It's just an offcut, and it ends up in our dog food chain, which isn't ideal. But also it takes ages and ages and ages to digest inside the stomach and can go on to cause issues there. And when it gets down to that last little inch square bit, it gets very sticky, very slimy, and it almost becomes a choke hazard. So just err on the side of caution and just don't bother. Put a fresh carrot in the freezer, and a broccoli. They love broccoli. Dogs love broccoli stems, definitely. Anyway, I'm waffling. Okay, resource guarding. So for the sake of this particular slide, this is more about puppies that end up guarding their food bowls. All right. And this is really heartbreaking for Wendy and I, because we deal with a lot of owners that are really heartbroken because they say to us, we don't understand, because from when we got him home at 8 weeks of age, we've put his food bowl down, we've picked it up again, but we've always given it straight back. So he knows that if we take it away from him, we always give it back. Or we've put our hand in the food and we've moved it round to make sure that he doesn't bite us. We've worked so hard on making sure that he doesn't guard or be aggressive over his food bowl. And now he's got to X amount of weeks of age. He's now freezing, growling, snarling, and he's now snapping at us if we go near him when he's eating. And it's so sad, because what's happened inadvertently is these well-meaning owners have actually taught their puppies to guard their food. So if you think about it, meal times is one of the highlights of well, it's one of the highlights of my day, but it is the highlight of a dog's day. You know, they love their food, so they get excited about having their food, and then we put the food down, and then we mess around with it, and we're picking the bowl up, and we're putting it back down again, we're putting around in the bowl, and doing all sorts. And when the puppy's little, he's like, oh gosh, all right, okay, and he'll take it, and he'll take it. And then eventually he'll get to the point, X amount of time down the line, and he's thinking, oh God, they're doing that again. Oh, why are they doing this? Just leave me alone. I want my food. And then the day will come when you go to do it and the puppy says, just no, back off. This is mine. So that's how it comes about. And when you look at it from the emotional viewpoint of the puppy, you think all behavior is a symptom of an emotional state. You can absolutely understand why he suddenly put his foot down and said, no, stop messing with my food. Because I can tell you, if you regularly mess with my Sunday dinner, I may end up stabbing you with my fork. I'm not a bad person, but you might drive me to do that. Doesn't make me a bad person. So I am sure that all of you listening in are thinking, but I do want to make sure that my puppy doesn't grow into a food guarder. That's absolutely fine. Who wants a food guarder? Nobody wants a food guarder. But we need to turn this idea of training on its head and do the absolute opposite. So what we are actually wanting to do is add to the food bowl. So you might want to put half the food into the bowl, put the bowl down on the floor. He's 8 weeks old. You've got the other half in a bowl, and you might say, Rover, and you would take some of the food and you would add it into his food bowl. And then you would do it again, Rover, and you would add it, Rover, and you would add it. So he learns that when a hand is coming down towards his food bowl, 99.9% of the time, either more of his food is going to appear in his bowl, or he might be getting the odd table scrap, or he might get a bit of chicken, or he might get a bit of ham, or he might get I don't know, a bit of smacko. So you're building that positive association. He has no reason to fear any human being putting the hand down towards his food bowl, because his reward history is that things get better when a human is near his food bowl, not worse. So I'm hoping that that kind of makes sense. The other thing I wanted to talk to you briefly about was puppies that grow up to guard stolen items. Now, believe me, you will bring a puppy home and your puppy will steal stuff. I'm hoping that I forewarned you and you're all going to go out this weekend and buy Stack-It boxes, and you're going to be uber tidy. But they will find a sock, they'll find a tissue, they'll find a shoe, they'll find something, the TV remote, they will find something, okay, and they'll run off with it. And whether or not they turn out to guard these items further down the line is entirely up to how you respond, okay? Because if you respond emotionally and abruptly, you're teaching your puppy a lot. Oh, when I steal things, I can teach my owner to chase me. Puppies are bright. They're really bright. Remember what I said right at the start. They learn the naughty things as quick as they learn the good things. What I would encourage you to do is look at your puppy and think, oh God, he's stolen a tissue. And then I want you to make an assessment, okay? Does that tissue cause any danger to your puppy? No, it doesn't. Even if he eats the tissue, it's just going to go all soggy and he'll have, well, yeah, it'll come out in his poo. I was going to say it might wipe his bum on the way out, but that might be a bit bad. But it's not going to be a problem. There's no reason for you to add value to that tissue and go running after him to take it off him. Now, if you'd have dropped a £20 note on the floor and he picked the £20 note up, I'd want the £20 note back off him. Would I go chasing off after him and take it out of his mouth? No. I would be, Rover. I might go to the toy box, I might pick up a squeaky toy, or I might go to the fridge and raise the cheese drawer. and do an exchange. Okay, what you don't want to be doing is constantly going after your puppy and going, give me that, and taking stuff off him. Because when he's 8 weeks, when he's 9 weeks, when he's 10 weeks, 11 weeks, 12 weeks, you'll get away with it. But when he's 5 months and 6 months and he's got really irritated about it, he may well turn around and say no. And by that point, he'll have 42 teeth and you will back off, and then you've got a problem. So again, don't give value to the item and always look at trading or swapping. You're not rewarding the stealing, because the other thing you need to consider is, why did he steal in the first place? He's bored, he needs entertainment. Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves. So, like I said, we need to make sure that we do it right. Always add something better. Don't give value to an item. Assess whether it poses a danger to your puppy, whatever he's grabbed, and whether it's valuable to you. And keep all emotion out, okay? Or certainly all negative emotion out of it. Remain calm and positive wherever possible. And always have an alternative nearby to do a swapsy with. And like I said, consider why it happened. Why has he felt the need to start stealing things? It possibly means that he's been a bit understimulated. And if you can predict a behaviour, you can always prevent it. Okay, mad half hours, zoomies, that kind of thing. Perfectly normal, they happen. Most common in the evenings, maybe an hour or so after they've eaten. Some people find them almost scary, because the dog literally, this angelic puppy that you've had all day, suddenly turns into the devil, and whirlwinds ricocheting off furniture, doing flyby nipping on your ankles and all sorts. Doesn't normally last more than about 20 minutes because they exhaust themselves after doing it. But it can be a bit of a shock to the system. And the reasons for it might include excess energy. They know bedtime's coming and they need to get rid of any excess that they've got. They might have just got overstimulated, therefore overexcited, and they can't contain themselves. Or it could be just frustration and they're redirecting life. But they do grow out of that. It is different to when you let an adult dog off the lead in the park and it goes and does a mad figure of 8. It's slightly different. That's excitement of being off the lead. Zoomies is something that it generally tends to be puppies into adolescence. Okay, let's talk about puppy biting, mouthing. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Puppies have got pin sharp teeth and sharp, sharp, sharp little claws. They, as I've said earlier, they explore their world through their mouths. If you want to really understand how puppies play, then please hop onto YouTube and look up videos of litters of puppies playing with each other and how they're grabbing necks and legs and backs and sides and wrestling to the floor. Their idea of play is to bite. It's what they do. It's called play biting. However, when they do it to another puppy who's got a nice thick fur coat, it's kind of not as bad. It's a bit like them biting us through a winter coat, something like that. But when they do it onto our bare skin, ow, it hurts. And most puppy owners end up with hands and arms that resemble whether or not they'd perhaps been out cutting back brambles in their garden with no sleeves covering their arms. You'd just be scraped to pieces. I almost want to say it's normal unless you've got a bang-on job at redirecting, shoving toys in mouths left, right and centre, because that's basically what you've got to do. You've got to have toys absolutely everywhere and keep redirecting the puppy onto a toy. It can be really intimidating for children. That is something to bear in mind. I know the litter that we've got going out on the 10th, they seem to be particularly bitey. So it's toys, 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 most definitely. It tends to be worse in that bit when you get them home from 8 weeks up until they've finished their vaccination cover, because after the first week, they've explored the whole house, they've explored the garden, and now it's dum-de-dum, what's next? I'm frustrated, come on. So that's the time where you really need to start doing a little bit of training with them and getting their noses down, perhaps doing some scent games with them, because they're going to get frustrated at home. And from frustration, you know what it's like to feel frustrated, and it's like, so they take it out even more on you. It's going to get difficult again during teething. Anybody that has had a baby, when kids go through teething, they're grumpy and grizzly, their gums are sore, they don't know what to do, they don't know what's happening. So again, it's about those frozen towel type things, frozen rubber toys, frozen carrots, and just redirecting them onto other things. So sometimes you might think that if you yelp like a puppy or another dog would do, it will teach the puppy that it's hurt you and it won't do it again. And again, that depends on the personality of the puppy. So the girl that I've got at the moment, if I had have done that to her as a puppy, she would have curled up into a ball and not come near me for hours. And she would probably never have put her teeth on me again, but would have really damaged our relationship because she's really sensitive. One of the males that I had, if I'd have done that and yelped when he did that to me as a puppy, he would have gone, whoa-hey, an adult squeaky toy, and he'd have come in harder. Do it again, do it again, do it again. So, and there's everything in the middle. So on the whole, yelping isn't really that effective. And if you're really getting to the point where the distraction isn't working and you're starting to feel angry, because we get defensive, because it's like, ow, that flipping hurts, stop it, just remove yourself from the situation, step over the puppy, away from the puppy, leave the room, okay? Or pop the puppy into another room and just say, you need to calm down, I'm not playing with you like that when you're doing that. And that's a good message to the puppy. If you continue to bite on this human's delicate skin, you lose the human for a few minutes. I'm not talking very long at all, literally a minute or two, and then go back in. And if he immediately starts on you again, remove yourself again. The consequence of him using his mouth too much means he doesn't get access to you. That's kind of what I'm saying. And for kids, for the little ankle biters, then house wellies, which coming into the summer months, that might get a bit hot and uncomfortable. But if a puppy they naturally want to come in and get the bottom of your tracksuit bottoms or your pajamas, or get the fluff around your slippers. For those puppies that want to grab all of those, then ouch, yes, it's uncomfortable. Whereas if you've got wellies on and you've tucked those garments into the wellies, the puppy cannot hurt you through the welly, so you can just stand perfectly still and not respond in any shape, way or form. And it won't take very long before the puppy goes, oh, that doesn't get a response. I'll move on to, oh, they've chucked me a toy, I'll go and play with that instead. So that's what we're saying. And again, there's no point in punishing it. All you'll do is damage your relationship with your puppy, because they don't know they're doing anything wrong. They're trying to play with you like they would play with another puppy. It just takes them a little bit of a while to learn, oh, actually, that doesn't work. I have to play with toys instead. Okay, on to exercise. How much is too much? Lots of you will potentially be hearing stuff online or from breeders to say that a puppy should only have 5 minutes exercise for every month of its life. And believe you me, you'll be pulling your hair out if you do stick to that rule, because it's not enough. Consider when they're giving you these exercise restrictions that it is for exercise that is on pavements or roads, so concrete, very hard ground, where your puppy is on lead and its speed and duration is dictated by the human. Okay, if that's the type of exercise that the puppy's going to get, then yes, 5 minutes per month of its life is absolutely all it should take. However, most of us are going to either be carrying or driving our puppies to the local field on grass area, and they're going to have their little harnesses and long lines on, or they're going to be loose depending on how confident you are, or the level of training that you've done, or whatever, and you will allow the puppy to regulate his own exercise. Am I saying taking a 12-week-old puppy out for 90 minutes? No, I'm absolutely not. You're going to use your judgment on that. I'm also not going to say go and throw a ball for 40 minutes for a youngster, or a frisbee. I don't want them jumping, twisting, chasing, and doing hard endurance exercise. But as far as them out exploring the world with you on soft ground where he can walk or trot at his own speed, don't feel too prescriptive with regards to what you've been told about the 5 minutes per month of life. Okay, it's about protecting their joints. That's what the restrictions are. However, I would say anybody that's taking on a giant breed, then really speak to your breeder, because their joints are more susceptible. Obviously, Mother Nature didn't design dogs to come up that big, we did, so we need to be a little bit more cautious. So if we're introducing a puppy to an existing dog in the home, 3 different types of existing dogs, I guess. Firstly, we would perhaps look at an older dog. I don't know, he might be 9, 10 plus, and then you're introducing a new puppy. Just bear in mind that's kind of similar to granddad and grandchild situation. And a nice little visit might be okay, but prolonged exposure and asking that grandparent to care fully for the grandchild is asking too much of the grandparent. So when the older dog gets to the point of being a bit grumpy or looking like it's had enough, we need to step in, separate, protect the old dog, redirect the puppy onto something else, and not let the old dog get to the point where he's feeling miserable because he's constantly being jumped on and hassled. And I think, to be fair, in most situations, dog owners do protect their older dogs more so, and that's absolutely the right way to go. The kind of difficult bracket is the dog that might be somewhere between 3 and 7, which is deemed to be a nice role model. Of course, yeah, great age. You've introduced a puppy, it's got to be all right with other dogs, otherwise why would you be introducing a puppy? And then the puppy gets a little bit rambunctious, over the top, is hassling this middle-aged older dog, and the older dog then disciplines the puppy with a proper "don't do that." I'm not talking biting the puppy, but perhaps a growl, snap, rah, right, rah at the puppy. And the owner then steps in and disciplines the older dog. Poor puppy, did the doggy scare you? Sorry, naughty dog, you shouldn't do that. You're asking for trouble, really, if you're getting into that situation. You should always really be backing up your older dog, because he's teaching your puppy some manners and when to stop and when to draw a line. You've got to bear in mind that there comes a time as well where the puppy license will run out, so the relationship might change a bit, but Wendy will be covering that during her adolescence talk after this one. So just always consider the older dog. They were there first. They didn't necessarily ask, do you bring this new puppy in? So reinforce them, thank them very much for doing what they're doing, and then redirect the puppy on to other things. 2 puppies together, or if you're taking on a puppy and you've got an existing dog that's under under a year, definitely, then that's going to be a challenge. No decent breeder would only 2 puppies together. Is really, really challenging and can go on and cause all sorts of issues with regards to over bonding with each other. It can cause dog to dog reactivity because they play hard with each other, and then when they try to play like that with other dogs, the other dogs tell them off, so they then get in there first. It's double trouble with house training, with socializing, training, and we end up getting to the point where they hit adolescence, they fall out with each other, and we have to have the conversation of, well, which one do you want to keep? And that's really sad. So if we could protect you from doing that, we absolutely would. And then we come to puppies and kids. And as I said right at the start, lots of people take on puppies when they've got young children because they figure it's safe, and that's absolutely fine. And this is what everybody wants to see. They want their puppy to grow up into an adult dog and be a great companion to the children in the household. But always consider, is it the best idea, and consider your individual child's personality, how confident they are around dogs, because I won't go into it too much again, but puppies bite. They play bite. They're frustrated. They're jumping up. They're ragging on things. They chew up toys if the kids leave their toys lying around. They are hard work. It doesn't last forever. It doesn't. It's only the first few months, but we do advice calls where kids have been so excited about having a puppy, and then we're talking to the parents and the kids are like 8 and 9 years old. They won't come downstairs unless the puppy's in a pen. So that's something to consider, and we often advocate keeping them apart, keeping puppies and young children apart unless active supervision is taking place. And by active, I mean you're not watching Netflix, you're not on your phone, you're not talking on the normal telephone, not on social media, that kind of thing. You're actively supervising the interaction. The other thing is kids often want to pick puppies up, and both of these puppies are really uncomfortable. This isn't how you pick a puppy up, but somebody thought these photographs were cute enough to take. And if you get a bad experience, a kid drops a puppy or a kid hurts a puppy, you're damaging that first relationship, those early formative months of bonding. So that's something else to consider as well. But like I said, it can be done, and it is done. This is one of the, so Esme that I showed you right at the start, this is her sister Grace, with the family that we rehomed her to. I think she's about 6 months old here, with her little human friend. But you can see the owner's on the sofa and it's calm, the kids on the floor, the dog's on the floor. It's calm interaction, kids watching TV, dogs watching TV, everybody's happy. Puppy training classes, they're a must at the moment, for the next few weeks at least. They're mostly being offered online throughout various clubs, but we will be doing face-to-face classes again shortly, and starting things off using positive reinforcement and having a good relationship. And there's nothing better for building a good bond than quality training classes. I do just want to put this with a word of caution though. We'd always recommend that you research any class that you might want to take your puppies to, and you might want to go and attend it without your puppy to start with, and certainly watch out for whether or not they're using any of these gadgets listed at the photographed at the bottom here. So the pet corrector spray, a shaky bottle or a water pistol, these are all classed of aversives, and will completely trash your relationship with your puppy. You always want your puppy to learn to obey you because it wants to, because it trusts you, it loves you, and there's been a positive association with doing the right thing. You don't want it to obey you because it's scared of the consequences of not doing that. None of us want to parent in that way, and I don't want to live with my dog that way. Be cautious of seeking training advice online. There is a whole lot of really poor advice on there, and it's hard for pet owners to cut the wheat from the chaff. And there's a lot of dominant stuff on there. You know, your dog's being dominant and you mustn't let the dog go through doorways before you, or let it on the sofa, or to play tuggy and all of that kind of stuff. And it's all outdated, and again can damage the relationship that you have with your puppy. And poor training methods, as I said, can go on to have serious ramifications further down the line. So in summary, puppies are cute, adorable, wonderful, but hey, after a few sleepless nights and a few chewed up items, the novelty soon wears off. And being the main entertainer for a puppy is exhausting. It really is. Eyes in the back of your head. So go into this with your eyes wide open, because getting it wrong can result in heartache. However, getting it right is one of the most rewarding experiences that you will ever have. So if you've got any questions, concerns, you just want to talk and use us as a sounding board, then please give us a ring on this number, 0300 303 9333. Get put through to pet support, and we're happy to help you.